Dr. Amanda Brooks stared at her coffee mug, watching the dark liquid ripple as the research vessel's fusion drive hummed beneath her feet. The routine morning in the Hawkins Pride's observation deck shattered when proximity alerts blared through the ship's speakers. First contact scenarios were something they trained for, but nothing could have prepared her for what materialized before their bow. The alien ship looked like a cathedral had mated with a soap bubble. Crystalline spires jutted from its iridescent hull, refracting starlight in impossible patterns. No visible propulsion system, no radiation signature. It just existed, hanging in space like an ornament on the cosmic Christmas tree. "Would you look at that?" Amanda whispered, pressing her hand against the reinforced viewport. "Either we've discovered aliens, or someone spiked my coffee with something extraordinary." Captain Reynolds' voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Brooks to the bridge. Bring your entire physics team. And for God's sake, someone make sure she's had her coffee." The bridge was already packed when Amanda arrived, her team of physicists clustering around their sensor displays like kids at a candy store window. The alien vessel had drawn closer, and now they could see figures moving behind its translucent hull. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Jung announced, her fingers dancing over her console. "Signals coming through. Now." The holographic display flickered to life, and Amanda nearly dropped her coffee mug. The aliens looked surprisingly humanoid, if you ignored the fact that their skin seemed to shift colors like oil on water. They wore elaborate robes that appeared to be woven from starlight itself, complete with what looked suspiciously like wizard hats. "Greetings, young species," the apparent leader announced in perfect English, which was the first red flag. "We are the Mystica, and we have been watching your primitive attempts at faster-than-light travel with great interest." Amanda's eyebrows shot up. "Primitive. Our fusion drive is cutting-edge technology." "Ah yes," the alien interrupted, waving a color-shifting hand dismissively. "Your crude fire magic. Very quaint. Though I must say the containment fields are relatively impressive for such an unenlightened approach." The physics team exchanged bewildered glances. Amanda set her coffee down carefully, counting to 10 in her head. "I'm sorry, did you say fire magic? That's a controlled fusion reaction powered by—" "Yes, yes," another Mystican chimed in, this one wearing what appeared to be a star chart as a cape. "We understand. You've managed to bind elementary fire spirits through trial and error. But surely you've begun to develop proper thaumaturgical interfaces by now." Amanda opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Thaumaturgical. Captain, permission to run every sensor scan we have on their vessel." "Granted," Reynolds replied, looking like he was developing a headache. "Just try not to start an interstellar incident." The next hour was a bizarre dance of cultural confusion. While Amanda's team scrambled to analyze the Mystican ship's impossible physics, the aliens insisted on demonstrating their superior methods. They manifested swirling energy patterns with casual waves of their hands, created small portals that defied space-time, and somehow turned Officer Jung's coffee into what tasted suspiciously like chamomile tea. "Fascinating," Amanda muttered, staring at her quantum field readings. "They're manipulating subatomic particles through some kind of biological interface, but they don't seem to understand the actual mechanics behind it. It's like they've evolved to do advanced physics by instinct. Your primitive instruments cannot possibly comprehend the true nature of thaumaturgical arts," the Mystican leader declared haughtily. "Perhaps in time, we can teach your species the proper way to channel the universe's magical energies." Amanda took a long sip of her coffee, which she'd been guarding zealously since the tea incident. "With all due respect," she said, her scientific pride thoroughly poked, "plasma physics and quantum mechanics aren't magic. They're measurable, predictable phenomena that—" "Oh, you poor thing," the Mystican interrupted with what seemed to be genuine pity. "Still trapped in the materialistic paradigm of cause and effect. This is precisely why we've come. Your species shows promise, despite your technological crutches." The gleam in Amanda's eyes would have made her thesis advisors run for cover. "Captain," she said sweetly, "I believe we're about to have a very interesting cultural exchange." The Mystica's Grand Archmage, or as Amanda privately dubbed him, Gandalf's sparkly cousin, had commandeered the Hawking's Pride's conference room. His robes shifted through cosmic patterns that made her quantum sensors shriek in protest, and the air hummed with what he called arcane resonance, but her instruments labeled as localized quantum field distortions. "Your vessel shall attend the Grand Arcane Tournament," he declared, manifesting a scroll from seemingly nowhere. Amanda's sensors caught the quantum tunneling effect, and she had to bite her tongue to stop herself from explaining how he'd actually done it. "Failure to participate will result in your species being barred from Mystican space lanes." Captain Reynolds maintained his diplomatic poker face. "And if we win?" "Win?" The Grand Archmage's laughter sounded like wind chimes in a quantum hurricane. "My dear Primitive, the question isn't about winning. It's about proving your species worthy of proper magical instruction." Amanda's hand shot up like an overeager grad student. "Quick question. These space lanes you mentioned, they wouldn't happen to be naturally occurring quantum corridors that you've somehow tapped into using your biological abilities, would they?" The silence that followed was deafening. The Grand Archmage's skin shifted from opal to something closer to storm clouds. "Dr. Brooks," Captain Reynolds warned. "Because," Amanda continued, pulling up a holographic display of her sensor readings, "we've detected consistent quantum field fluctuations that match theoretical models of space-time shortcuts, except you're accessing them through some kind of biological quantum entanglement that our instruments can't quite." Enough. The Grand Archmage's outburst sent ripples through local space-time. Amanda's coffee mug rattled. This technological approach to sacred mysteries is precisely why your species requires guidance. The tournament begins in 3 cycles. Prepare yourselves. After the Mystica departed in a flash of what Amanda's sensors identified as controlled quantum displacement, Captain Reynolds turned to her with a look that suggested his headache had evolved into a migraine. "Doctor, please tell me you have some idea how we're going to handle this tournament." Amanda was already deep in her sensor readings, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. "Captain, they're doing impossible things with quantum manipulation, but they have no idea how they're doing it. It's like, imagine if humans had evolved the ability to do calculus in our heads without ever understanding the underlying mathematics. And this helps us how?" She grinned, pulling up more displays. "Because while they're relying on instinct, we can measure, analyze, and potentially replicate everything they're doing. Their magic follows rules they've never bothered to understand." Her physics team had already transformed their lab into a chaos of holographic displays and jury-rigged sensors. Dr. Peterson, her quantum mechanics specialist, looked up from a particularly complex reading. "Amanda, you need to see this. Their biological quantum interface. It's incredibly inefficient. They're wasting enormous amounts of energy on what basically amounts to special effects." "Perfect," Amanda said, rubbing her hands together. "Time to show them why understanding beats instinct. Jenkins, start modifying our plasma containment fields. Peterson, I want full quantum field analysis of every spell they cast. Martinez, begin adapting our sensors into something that can interface with their quantum manipulations." "Dr. Brooks," Captain Reynolds interrupted, "need I remind you that this is a diplomatic mission?" Amanda's grin turned predatory. "Exactly, Captain. And what better diplomacy than showing them how much more they could do if they actually understood their own abilities?" She turned back to her team. "They want magic. Let's show them what human science can do." As her team scrambled to work, Amanda pulled up the quantum field readings from the Grand Archmage's dramatic exit. Behind the flashy quantum displacement, she spotted something interesting, a pattern in the field fluctuations that suggested their magic wasn't as mystical as they claimed. 3 cycles to reverse engineer their biological quantum manipulation, she muttered, reaching for her coffee. "Better make it decaf." In the corner of the lab, a sensor array began to ping rapidly. Amanda rushed over, her eyes widening at the readings. The Mystica hadn't just given them a challenge. They'd unknowingly handed humans the key to understanding their entire civilization's capabilities. "Oh," she whispered, "this is going to be fun. Try it again." Amanda called out, her eyes glued to the sensor displays. And this time, Martinez, catch that quantum fluctuation signature before it dissipates. The Mystican apprentice, a young one who'd introduced himself as Kale, stood in the center of their makeshift testing chamber. Like all his kind, his skin rippled with colors that corresponded to his emotional state. Right now, he was cycling through shades of embarrassed purple. "I still don't understand why you need me to cast the same illumination charm 50 times, he complained, but raised his hand anyway. A sphere of pure light materialized above his palm. "Because," Amanda muttered, fingers dancing across her holographic interface, "consistency in data collection is." "Gyot it." She pumped her fist in triumph. "Jenkins, are you seeing this? Their biological interface creates a quantum field cascade that—" "Speaking English for the alien, please," Martinez interrupted, though he was grinning at his own readings. Amanda turned to Kale, who was letting the light sphere dissipate. "Every time you do that charm, you're actually creating a localized disruption in quantum fields. Your biology somehow initiates the cascade, but you're using about 1,000 times more energy than you need because you don't control the field boundaries." Kale's skin shifted to a confused green. "But it's just a simple light charm. First-year apprentice work." "Simple." Amanda pulled up a 3-dimensional model of the quantum interactions she'd recorded. "You're literally bending photons to your will through quantum manipulation. There's nothing simple about it. You're just doing it, instinctively." Peterson burst into the lab, waving a tablet. "Amanda, you need to see the analysis of their ship's propulsion system. They're not using engines at all. Their entire hull is one massive quantum field manipulator. They're surfing space-time like it's a wave." "Surfing is an excellent analogy," Amanda said, turning to Kale. "Your people learned to ride quantum waves without ever learning about the ocean. We humans, we had to study every molecule of water, understand fluid dynamics, calculate wave patterns. And yet you still splash around in your primitive vessels." A new voice interrupted. The Grand Archmage stood in the doorway, his robe swirling with disapproving patterns. Amanda didn't miss a beat. "Kale, do the light charm one more time. This time, try containing the quantum cascade like this." She adjusted something on her console, creating a visible framework of energy around his hand. Kale's eyes widened as he cast the charm. The sphere appeared as usual, but this time it was perfectly formed, steady, and using barely a fraction of his usual energy. "Impossible," the Grand Archmage whispered. "Improbable," Amanda corrected, grinning. "But that's why we study the improbable until we understand it. Your biology gives you amazing abilities, but you never ask how they work. We humans, asking how and why is practically our species' motto." She pulled up more displays, showing recording after recording of Mystican spells broken down into their quantum components. "Every magical effect you create follows consistent patterns. They're not random. They're not mystical. They're quantum physics expressed through biological interfaces that evolved over millions of years." The Grand Archmage's skin had turned a stormy gray. "These measurements, they cheapen the sacred arts." "Do they?" Amanda gestured to Kale, who was still creating perfect light spheres with minimal energy expenditure. "Or do they enhance them? Understanding how something works doesn't make it less magnificent. It lets you do it better." She turned to her team. "Show him." One by one, they activated devices they'd constructed over the past days. Perfect replications of Mystican effects, each one stripped down to its quantum mechanical essence and reproduced through technology. No wasted energy, no dramatic flourishes, just pure manipulation of natural forces. "The tournament begins tomorrow," the Grand Archmage said quietly. "You believe these machines can match our sacred arts. Amanda's smile was gentle but confident. No, Archmage. I believe they can show you what your sacred arts could become when combined with understanding. The question isn't whether magic or science is better. It's what happens when we use both. As if to punctuate her point, Kale created another light sphere, this time incorporating the quantum containment principles her team had discovered. It wasn't just steady, it was beautiful, a perfect fusion of intuitive ability and scientific precision. Now, Amanda said, shall we really start learning? The Mystican tournament arena looked like someone had given M.C. Escher unlimited funding and a degree in quantum architecture. Crystalline structures folded into themselves at impossible angles, and the very air shimmed with potential energy that made Amanda's sensors sing. Well, Martins muttered, calibrating his modified plasma containment field generator. They certainly know how to put on a show. The human team stood out sharply against the gathered Mystican competitors. While others wore flowing robes that rippled with cosmic energy, Amanda's team looked like they'd raided a research lab's supply closet. Which, to be fair, they had. Remember, Amanda said, checking the quantum field analyzer strapped to her wrist, we're not here to match their showmanship. We're here to demonstrate efficiency and control. The first round began with a Mystican elder facing off against a younger competitor. Their magical duel was spectacular, swirling vortexes of energy, bolts of pure force, and reality-bending effects that had the crowd gasping in awe. Amanda's team watched in silence, their sensors drinking in every quantum fluctuation. Look at the energy waste, Peterson whispered, showing her his readings. That lightning bolt spell. 90% of its energy went into visual effects. 10% actually hit the target. Their loss, our gain, Amanda replied, making final adjustments to their equipment. Jenkins, you're up first. Show them what human precision looks like. Jenkins stepped into the arena, facing a Mystican whose robes swirled with aggressive red patterns. The alien's skin shifted to a confident gold as he raised his hands dramatically. I shall teach you the meaning of true power, primitive one. Jenkins checked his containment field calibration and smiled politely. I look forward to the lesson. The Mystican struck first, hurling what appeared to be a miniature sun toward Jenkins. The crowd cheered, until Jenkins activated a precisely tuned quantum field that caught the attack, analyzed its structure, and redirected its energy into a perfect sphere of plasma that hovered calmly beside him. Interesting technique, Jenkins said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. But you're losing most of your energy in the visible spectrum. Like this. He gestured, and the plasma sphere split into 3 smaller ones, each moving in perfect formation without a single wasted joule. The Mystican's skin turned pale blue with shock. His next attack was bigger, flashier, and even less efficient. Jenkins calmly turned it into a complex geometric pattern of contained plasma, demonstrating precise control over every quantum interaction. Impossible, the Mystican sputtered, his skin cycling through confused colors. You're using machines. We're using understanding, Jenkins corrected, dissolving his plasma constructs with a negligent wave. Every effect you create, we can analyze, optimize, and reproduce. The only difference is we know exactly how we're doing it. The match ended decisively when the Mystican attempted a grand finishing move that Amanda's sensors identified as a cascading quantum resonance attack. Jenkins simply established a containment field that separated the useful energy from the wasteful special effects, reducing the mighty spell to a small, perfectly controlled point of light. And that, Jenkins said to the stunned silence, is why understanding beats raw power. As they prepared for the next match, Amanda noticed Kel watching from the competitor's area, his skin shifting between thoughtful green and excited silver. Other young Mystica were gathering around him, pointing at the human team's equipment and whispering intensely. Dr. Brooks, a tournament official, approached, skin flickering with nervous patterns. The High Council requests an explanation of your methods. They are concerned about your technological assistance. Amanda smiled sweetly. Of course. I'd be happy to explain exactly how we're measuring, analyzing, and reproducing every quantum interaction your competitors create. Should I start with the basic principles of field theory, or would you prefer a detailed breakdown of energy efficiency ratios? The official's skin turned a distinctly queasy shade of orange. Don't worry, she added, watching as Martinez stepped up for his match. We're just getting started. Wait until you see what happens when we combine your biological interfaces with our precise control systems. Above the arena, reality bent and twisted with competing energies, but Amanda's sensors showed the truth. Beneath all the flash and spectacle, quantum mechanics remained quantum mechanics, whether you called it magic or science. Now, she said, checking her equipment. Who's next? Between matches, Amanda's impromptu lab in the tournament complex had become something of an underground sensation. Young Mystica crowded around her team's equipment, their skin colors shifting through rainbows of curiosity as the humans explained their findings. You see this spike here? Amanda pointed to a holographic display while Kale and a group of apprentices watched intently. That's your quantum field interface activating. But look at the energy distribution. It's like a fire hose when we only need a drinking straw. Kale finished, his skin pulsing with excited silver. He'd been spending every free moment in their lab, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Martinez burst in, waving his tablet. Amanda, you need to see this. I've compiled the efficiency ratings from all the matches so far. The Mystica are operating at an average 12% energy efficiency. Their most powerful spells are the worst, some barely hitting 5% useful output. And the rest? One of the younger Mystica asked. Light shows, Amanda said, pulling up comparison charts. Beautiful, impressive, absolutely wasteful light shows. But watch this. She activated a small device on her workbench. A perfect sphere of controlled plasma appeared, surrounded by precisely tuned quantum fields. Same effect as a standard Mystican energy projection, but using less than 1% of the power. No light show, just pure function. This is heresy. A voice thundered from the doorway. The Grand Archmage stood there, his robes swirling with angry patterns. But Amanda noticed something interesting. His quantum field signature showed signs of strain. No, she said quietly, checking her readings. This is conservation of energy. And speaking of which, Archmage, how long can you maintain your current power output? Because my sensors indicate you're burning through your biological reserves at an alarming rate. His skin flickered briefly to a telling shade of worried gray before he mastered himself. Our methods have served us for millennia. And they could serve you for millennia more. Amanda agreed. But better. She gestured to Kale. Show him what you learned. Kale stepped forward, nervous but determined. He raised his hand, and instead of his usual flashy display, he created a small but perfectly controlled quantum effect. The energy readings showed near-perfect efficiency. I'm not just guessing anymore, Kale explained, his skin glowing with pride. I can feel the quantum fields now, understand how they work. It's like I've been painting blindfolded, and someone finally taught me to see the colors. Other young Mystica were nodding, their skin colors synchronizing in agreement. Some had already started modifying their techniques based on the human's analysis. This is why we science the hell out of everything, Amanda said, turning back to her displays. Understanding doesn't diminish the wonder, it enhances it. Watch. She pulled up a complex simulation showing the interaction between Mystican biological interfaces and human technology. Your bodies can initiate quantum effects we can barely detect. Our technology can measure and control those effects with precision you never imagined possible. Apart, we're each working with half the equation. Together. The simulation showed a theoretical combination of both approaches. The energy efficiency readings went off the scale. Impossible, the Grand Archmage whispered, but Amanda caught the flicker of fascination beneath his outrage. That word, she grinned, I don't think it means what you think it means. Jenkins, show them the prototype. Jenkins activated a device they'd been working on, a hybrid system that combined human quantum field manipulation technology with patterns copied from Mystican biological interfaces. The result was smaller, more efficient, and more powerful than anything either species had created alone. "The next match starts in 10 minutes, Amanda said, watching the Grand Archmage's skin shift through a complex pattern of emotions. "You can either keep fighting against understanding, or—" She gestured to where Kale was already teaching other young Mystica how to monitor their own quantum field interactions. The Grand Archmage was quiet for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, his skin shifted to a shade of thoughtful blue. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "I could benefit from a more detailed explanation of these efficiency ratings." Amanda's grin widened. "Pull up a chair, Archmage. Class is in session." The semifinals were about to begin when everything went wrong. A Mystican Grandmaster, determined to prove the superiority of traditional methods, attempted what Amanda's sensors identified as a quantum cascade far beyond safe parameters. "That idiot," she muttered, watching energy readings spike into the red. "He's trying to tap into quantum fields without any containment structure. Martinez, emergency protocols." Jenkins, "Get the hybrid stabilizers online." The Grandmaster stood in the center of the arena, his robes writhing with unstable patterns as reality began to warp around him. His skin had turned a sickly white, the Mystican equivalent of pure terror, as he realized he couldn't control the forces he'd unleashed. "Behold true power," he'd proclaimed seconds earlier. Now his voice shook. I can't stop it." The cascade was spreading, quantum fields distorting in ways that made Amanda's instruments scream. Traditional Mystican containment spells shattered against the growing anomaly. The Grand Archmage himself stepped forward, attempting to assert control, only to be driven back by the chaotic energy. "Dr. Brooks," Captain Reynolds' voice cracked through her comm. "The Hawking's Pride is detecting spatial distortions spreading through the entire complex. If that cascade reaches critical—" "It won't." Amanda cut him off, already moving. She caught Cal's eye across the arena, ready for some applied quantum mechanics. His skin shifted to determined silver as he nodded, already adjusting the sensor array she taught him to use. Around them, other young Mystica who'd been studying human methods fell into position. "The rest of you, clear the arena," Amanda shouted, deploying her team's equipment in a precise pattern. "This isn't about power or showmanship anymore. This is about understanding exactly what we're dealing with." The quantum cascade had grown into a swirling vortex of distorted space-time. Amanda's sensors painted a clear picture of the problem. The Grandmaster had accidentally created a self-sustaining feedback loop in the quantum fields, each pulse growing stronger as it fed on its own energy. "Kale, establish a primary containment field using your biological interface. Martinez, calibrate our field generators to match his quantum signature. Jenkins, prepare for energy redistribution." They moved like a well-oiled machine, human technology working in perfect sync with Mystican abilities. Kel's containment field shimmered into existence, far more focused than traditional Mystican efforts thanks to his new understanding of field dynamics. "The cascade is still growing," someone shouted. "Because we're not trying to stop it," Amanda replied, eyes fixed on her readings. "Force against force is what got us into this mess. We're going to solve this with precision and understanding." Her fingers flew across her console, adjusting field parameters in real time. The hybrid systems they'd developed allowed them to interface directly with the Mystican biological quantum manipulation, creating something entirely new. "Now," she ordered, "everyone focus. We're not fighting the cascade. We're going to guide it. Like redirecting a river instead of trying to dam it." The combined human Mystican team moved in perfect coordination. Where traditional magic had tried to suppress the cascade, they created controlled channels for the energy to flow. Where brute force had failed, surgical precision prevailed. "Energy levels dropping," Martins reported. "The feedback loop is breaking down." Amanda nodded, making minute adjustments to their containment fields. Kale, prepare for final dispersal. This is going to be just like the light charm practice, but on a much bigger scale. The young Mystican's skin glowed with concentration as he applied his new understanding of quantum mechanics. The chaos of the cascade gradually transformed into a controlled display of energy, becoming something beautiful rather than destructive. When it was over, the arena fell silent. Where there had been a near catastrophe, now there was only a gentle shimmer in the air and a lot of stunned faces. That, Amanda said into the silence, is why understanding beats raw power every time. She turned to face the gathered Mystica, including the shaken Grandmaster. Your abilities aren't any less magnificent because we can explain them. They're more magnificent because now we can perfect them. The Grand Archmage stepped forward, his skin cycling through thoughtful colors. Perhaps, he said slowly, it is time for both our peoples to learn some new lessons. Behind him, Amanda noticed more young Mystica gathering around her team's equipment, their skin colors bright with curiosity and possibility. Lesson 1, she grinned, pulling up the sensor data from their successful intervention. Let's talk about quantum field theory. The tournament's final day dawned with an unexpected announcement. Instead of traditional combat, the Grand Archmage had declared it would be a demonstration of understanding. Amanda couldn't hide her grin as she set up her equipment on the arena's main stage. Nervous? Kale asked, his skin flickering between excited silver and anxious green as he helped calibrate their hybrid quantum interface. Terrified, Amanda admitted cheerfully, adjusting holographic projectors. But that's science for you. If you're not at least a little scared of what you're about to try, you're probably not pushing hard enough. The arena was packed, not just with Mystica, but with observers from a dozen alien species. News of the quantum cascade incident and its resolution had spread fast. The human team's demonstration had become the most anticipated event in recent memory. Ready? Amanda asked her team. Martinez gave a thumbs up from his station, while Jenkins finished arranging their array of hybrid devices. Peterson was already running final checks on the quantum field monitors. Begin, the Grand Archmage commanded, his skin now a steady shade of curious blue that would have been unthinkable days ago. Amanda stepped forward. For millennia, the Mystica have wielded quantum forces through biological interfaces evolved over countless generations. Humanity, in contrast, spent centuries studying these same forces through the lens of scientific inquiry. Today, we show you what happens when we combine both approaches. She nodded to Kull, who raised his hands. Instead of his traditional magical display, he created a perfect quantum field visualization that filled the arena. Every member of the audience could now see the energy patterns that permeated their reality. This is your magic, Amanda explained, highlighting specific patterns. Beautiful, powerful, and until now, largely unexamined. Watch what happens when we add human precision to Mystican intuition. The team activated their hybrid systems. The quantum field display transformed, showing the intricate dance of energies at levels never before visible to the Mystica. Gasps echoed through the arena as audience members recognized their own abilities in the complex patterns before them. Every spell, every magical effect, follows precise quantum mechanical principles, Amanda continued, manipulating the display. Your bodies evolved to interface with these fields instinctively. Our technology lets us measure, analyze, and optimize these interactions. She pulled up comparison displays showing traditional Mystican techniques alongside their optimized versions. The same effects, but achieved with fraction of the energy expenditure. And that's just the beginning. Kale stepped forward, his skin glowing with pride. Watch this. He demonstrated a series of traditional spells, but performed them using the hybrid approach they'd developed. Each effect was cleaner, more precise, and dramatically more efficient than anything the Mystica had achieved in their long history. But the real breakthrough, Amanda said, isn't just in efficiency. It's in possibility. The team activated their final demonstration. a fully integrated human-mystican interface system. The quantum fields in the arena began to dance in entirely new patterns, creating effects that neither species could achieve alone. Your biological interfaces give you access to quantum interactions we can barely detect, Amanda explained. Our technology provides precision and control you never imagined possible. Together, she gestured, and the hybrid system created a display of pure possibility. New applications of quantum mechanics that had the audience's skin shifting through colors of wonder and amazement. "This isn't the end of magic," she said, addressing the concerns she knew many traditionalists harbored. "This is its evolution. Understanding doesn't diminish wonder, it multiplies it." The Grand Archmage stepped forward, his skin now showing patterns of deep revelation. "When we first encountered your species, we saw only primitive technology. Now we see that true advancement comes not from power alone, but from the wisdom to understand that power." He turned to address the crowd. "The tournament is concluded. There is no winner because there was never meant to be one. Instead, we have all gained something far more valuable. A new way forward." Amanda caught Cal's eye and smiled. Around them, humans and Mystica were already clustering around the equipment, trading insights and ideas, barriers dissolving in the face of shared discovery. "Now," she said, pulling up fresh displays, "who's ready to really start exploring what's possible?" The response was immediate and enthusiastic. The future, it seemed, would be neither pure science nor pure magic, but something far more interesting. Understanding made manifest. 3 months after the tournament, the Hawking's Pride hovered near the newly established Human Mystican Research Institute. The station was a marvel of combined engineering, crystalline spires integrated with human technology, quantum field manipulators working in harmony with Mystican biological interfaces. Amanda stood at her favorite observation window, coffee in hand, watching young Mystica working alongside human scientists. Their skin colors shifted in patterns of concentration and excitement as they explored new applications of their combined knowledge. "Still can't believe we pulled this off," Martine said, joining her with his own coffee. "Remember when they thought our fusion drive was primitive fire magic?" Speaking of which, Amanda grinned, pointing to where Cal was leading a group through basic quantum field theory. His skin glowed with teacher's pride as he demonstrated concepts using both traditional Mystican techniques and human scientific principles. Dr. Brooks, a junior researcher, human, approached with a tablet. "The Grand Archmage is requesting your presence in Lab 7. They've made a breakthrough with the Quantum Corridor Mapping Project." The corridors, what the Mystica had once called their sacred space lanes, were now being systematically studied and optimized. Understanding the quantum mechanics behind them had already doubled their efficiency and stability. Lab 7 was a hub of activity. The Grand Archmage's robes still swirled with energy patterns, but now they were precisely controlled, enhanced by human technology. His skin showed excited patterns as he manipulated a complex holographic display. "Ah, Dr. Brooks," he called out, "we've discovered something remarkable. The quantum field interactions we use for transportation. They're not just corridors, they're gateways to understanding higher dimensional physics." Amanda dove into the data, her eyes lighting up. The combined approach had revealed aspects of quantum mechanics that neither species had noticed alone. Mystican intuition guided them to phenomena that human instruments could then analyze and understand. "This is just the beginning," she said, making adjustments to their hybrid quantum scanner. "Every answer leads to new questions. That's the beauty of it." Indeed, the Grand Archmage agreed, his skin showing thoughtful patterns. "We spent millennia believing we had reached the pinnacle of understanding. How wrong we were." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. A new ship was approaching. Representatives from another spacefaring species, drawn by rumors of human Mystican achievements. "They probably think they're coming to evaluate our primitive methods too," Martins chuckled. Amanda watched through the window as the alien vessel drew near. Its design suggested a completely different approach to physics and space travel. New possibilities, new questions, new opportunities for understanding. "You know what this means," she said, already pulling up fresh holographic displays. More data. The Institute burst into activity. Human scientists readied their instruments while Mystican adepts prepared their enhanced biological interfaces. The hybrid systems they developed hummed with potential. Kale approached, his skin showing the confident silver of someone who had found his true calling, ready to science the magic out of another civilization. "Not out of," Amanda corrected, checking her quantum field analyzer. "Into. Through. Beyond." The magic was never the problem. It was thinking that understanding would somehow make it less magical. She looked around the lab. Human technology seamlessly integrated with Mystican capabilities. Young researchers from both species working together, each bringing their unique perspectives to every challenge. The Grand Archmage himself now wore a modified sensor array as casually as his traditional robes. "Besides," she added with a grin, "we've got the best of both worlds now. We can explain exactly how impossible things happen." As if to demonstrate, she activated their latest hybrid system. A perfect quantum field manipulation blossomed in the air. Beautiful as any Mystican spell, precise as any human technology, and understood down to its last quantum interaction. "Now then," she said, watching the new alien ship approach, "who's ready to revolutionize another civilization's understanding of the universe?" The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Humans and Mystica moved as one team, ready to face new challenges with both scientific precision and intuitive grace. They had learned the greatest lesson of all. True magic isn't in the mystery, but in the endless wonder of understanding. After all, as Amanda often said, the universe's greatest magic trick is being comprehensible in the first place, and humanity's greatest gift was never being satisfied with just knowing that something worked. They always had to know why. The adventure, it seemed, was just beginning.